Hello, welcome to Galactic Initiative. I'm your host, Jeff. Joining me, as always, David and Sean. Welcome, David.
May the 4th be with you.
Welcome, Sean.
Hello, my friend.
Let's begin. The Bad Batch, Clone Force 99, Hunter, Wrecker, Tech, Crosshair, and Echo. And to get you ready for the premiere on May 4th, we broke up the group, and now we'll walk you through what each of the characters is bringing to the table.
So Hunter, he's the leader of the group. He's a sergeant, and he's a clone commando. We've seen a few different commentaries on this, and it's written out in different ways. These clones are described as favorable mutations or enhanced clones. We're not really clear on what the Bad Batch really is. Are they happy accidents of the mutation process? Like 99, for example, the reason why the group is called Clone Force 99 is to honor him. He was deformed physically, so he couldn't be a trooper, so he became a maintenance guy on Kamino. There's some conversation in the Clone Wars about how, because Jango Fett has died, they can't get his genetic material anymore. So stretching what remaining genetic material they have to continue to manufacture the army for the Republic. This is a core element to the Battle of Kamino in the Clone Wars show. Asajj Ventress is there to try and steal the remaining genetic material from the vault there on Kamino, so they can't make more clones. So anyway, so these guys are these super soldiers, either by design or by accident, but they don't look like the standard clone. But Hunter is, like I said, he's the leader. He has enhanced senses. He can detect electromagnetic activity or radio signals or whatnot. They talk about how when they go into battle with him, they don't need a map because he always finds his way. He just uses his senses. He's also sort of a hand-to-hand combat guy. He carries a vibroblade, which is it stands out as a unique weapon for him. His character design is interesting. We were all having a conversation earlier about who he reminds us of. There was talk of Charlie Sheen in Platoon, Rambo, others. Doing some research on this, Dave Filoni and the guys wanted him to look like Billy from Predator, and so he kind of has that look with the headband and whatnot, and the longer hair. He has a tattoo. I'm assuming it's a tattoo, but on the side of his face, which is half of a skull. So you get sort of the jawline and the teeth on his cheek, which the skull is a symbol of this particular commando unit. Every one of the characters has a skull on their armor somewhere. They wear commando armor, clone commando armor. It's a different version with different paint job, the gray and the red and the black. They all have sort of enhanced or different styles of helmets depending on their particular specialty. Hunter, he's kind of the straightforward, straight talking leader. He doesn't really mince words. He says what he means. Charge the enemy. Let's not be subtle. There's a conversation between him and Rex when they're talking about how they're going to assault the tower, and they kind of have this back and forth where he's like, "Oh, I suppose you want to pick them off one by one from a safe distance," and Rex is like, "No, let's just tear it down like you guys do. Let's just charge in there and get crazy." And part of that has to do with the overall story arc, of course, with Echo is the cyborg, and he understands everybody's tactical proclivities, especially Rex. So I think he's an interesting character. It'll be interesting to see where he goes in the show.
The story arc, the 4-episode arc for season 7 of the Clone Wars. Echo's imprisonment is kept secret, and Captain Rex has his theory that the Separatists are using him to defeat the Republic on an axis. From the original story reels, we knew pretty much right away that it was Echo and that they were going to get him. You probably don't realize how often Echo appeared in the Clone Wars unless you're a hardcore fan. He was a cadet in Domino Squad to open season 3. His nickname came from repeating commands despite the fact that everyone in his squad received orders in real time. Thanks to Heavy, who takes the lead, and 99, the defective yet wise maintenance clone, Domino Squad passes its final test to qualify for battle. Then we go forward, but we actually go backward to an episode called Rookies. Echo, part of Domino Squad, they're assigned to a tracking station on the Rishi moon. The tracking station is overrun by commando droids. Heavy sacrifices himself to destroy the station and warn the Republic fleet. Cool details from that episode. Captain Rex meets Echo and the rest of Domino Squad for the first time, and he calls them shinies because their armor hasn't seen action, and he puts his hand on Echo's chest. And for the rest of Echo's time in the Clone Wars, Echo actually paints it blue and it becomes part of his armor. He has Rex's handprint. At the end of that episode, Rookies, Echo and Fives earn medals for bravery, and they are welcomed by Captain Rex into the 501st Legion. Then we go forward back into season 3. Echo and Fives become ARC troopers for their defense of the Camino cloning facilities. Another cool detail at the beginning of that episode, Fives has Heavy's blaster painted on his shoulder in remembrance of Heavy's sacrifice on the Rishi moon. And then later in season 3, Echo is lost in the Citadel story arc. He died heroically trying to destroy a gun turret that was guarding a shuttle the Jedi needed to escape from the Separatist prison. After the turret destroys the shuttle explodes. Viewers are shown his smoking helmet lying on the ground. And then into the last season, Anakin and the Bad Batch rescue Echo from a stasis chamber on Skako Minor. The Techno Union converted him into a cyborg. He has a SCOP-link or computer interface in place of his right forearm, 2 mechanical legs, numerous data ports covering his body. His appearance called Frankenstein's monster and the Matrix to mind. Knowledge of Republic tactics make him an asset to defeat the clones time and again. However, since he had access to the Techno Union database, he directed the hero's escape and set a trap for the Separatists. Once rescued, that leads to ultimate victory on Anaxis. After the battle, he accepts Hunter's invitation to join Clone Force 99.
So Wrecker is the Heavy. Reminds me a little bit of the Hulk. Very few words, but a whole lot of action. He tends to want to use his fists to destroy things. He is kind of the comedy relief. One of his first quotes was, "When I'm up real high, I have a problem with gravity." He is very physical. Has a part where he's throwing people up into a shaft without them even being ready. So again, a little bit more comedy relief. Wrecker's helmet, it looks like Jaws, and 99 in Arabish on the top. Absolutely intimidation personified. I mean, as soon as I would see that guy coming at me with that type of a helmet, I'm headed the other way. I don't care what anybody else is saying. I'm ditching you. I'm out. The Bad Batch as a group have done obviously many, many different missions together, and they work together. When they crash in the first episode, Wrecker just basically takes it upon himself. He knows his role. He's the first one in. He takes a piece of the ship and uses it as a shield. And instead of falling back and waiting for the droids to come after him, he goes after the droids. And all the other Bad Batch members fall behind him, and he just continues to move forward until they take down the rest of the droid army. So really, really like watching him and getting to kind of know him.
Let's talk about tech. He looks a lot different than the other clones. He's fair in complexion. Looks like he has lighter hair. He has different facial structure. He is more the computer savvy one. He's the one who uses more technology in the execution of his role on the team. He's got an enhanced, it's a scout clone helmet that has an interface in it that he uses to translate, explaining stuff. And you kind of see the readouts on there where one side is Arabic and the other side is whatever language it's going into. He uses it to record. They talk about how he likes to record everything. Of course, it comes back as a helpful tool later on, the flying lizard dragon things. because he uses their call that he recorded earlier for whatever reason. But they talk about how he has a hobby for that. He's when he was talking, he's very much the nerd. He wants to tell you all the trivia. He wants to give you all the deep technical knowledge that you probably don't need to hear, but he's going to tell you anyway, how everything works and that kind of stuff. When I saw him, I was like, he reminds me of the Ken Jennings of the clones. He's the trivia guy. He's the one who will win on Jeopardy every time. Very instrumental in helping them breach, the data complex where Echo is being held. He's able to pick locks and interface with systems. He figures out how to detach Echo from the computer. Rex takes him while the other guys hold off the droid army, the Techno Union. So he's that other piece. We've got brawn. We've got the lethality. We've got the very physical hand-to-hand fighting skills, and he uses the intellectual side. He's going to be another interesting character. It'll be interesting to see how they use him in the future for things. I mean, there's obviously the Star Wars universe is replete with technology, so he will be the slicer guy. He's going to be the dude who's breaking into computers and hacking things, and he will be an interesting offset to the other characters on the team who are more prone to blowing things up. But yeah, so he rounds it all out. We've got Wrecker on one extreme, and we've got Tech on the other.
Crosshair has, wait for it, a crosshair around his right eye and the right eye of his helmet. When viewers are introduced to him, he is chewing on a toothpick and dismissively calling other clones regs, short for regulars, and so right away we get the sense that Crosshair has a bad attitude. His helmet's rangefinder provides X-ray and thermal vision. He carries a 7.73 fire puncher rifle that has many configurations: sniper, ascension gun, bipod, long range, silencer. The stock neatly hooks or magnetizes to his backpack. On Skako Minor, he shows off the ascension gun when he fires a cable into one of the Poltex flying lizards. He follows up with a stun dart to free Anakin from underneath the lizard's foot. He places small magnetic ricochet devices along multiple hallways in the Separatist base, and then with one shot, he destroys an entire squad of battle droids. So these little devices, we don't know what they are as he's distributing them along these hallways. He takes the shot, perfectly follows all of the angles where he set the sensors, and so many shows they would have spoiled that. As he was placing them in the hallway, someone would have asked a question, "Hey, what are you doing?" And then he would have explained it, and then they would have done it. I liked the patience to just let that unfold.
Crosshair feels to me like the most special forces of all of these guys. Wrecker, we've got the brawn. Hunter is sort of cool and detached from everything. And then Tech, of course, is the tech guy. But Crosshair, to me, feels he has the attitude of the elite warrior. The regular army is just the regs to him. And again, it's probably a trope or a media idea. I mean, obviously I can't say, oh yeah, from my experience, but this soldier who, because of elite status, gets to operate a little bit outside of the rules. Yes, that statement covers this larger group, but his abilities, the fact that he is a sniper, the fact that he's a weapons expert, he strikes me as the most elite of this elite force.
Well, he definitely exudes confidence. He knows that the Bad Batch is superior. He's strangely soft-spoken. He is, for the most part, quiet, but when he speaks, he's not emotional. And he's utterly and completely honest. And yes, he does. His skill, realistic maybe isn't the word, but Crosshair could exist.
Exactly. And I think you said it a little better than I did, that the confidence that he has and the way his soft-spoken nature, I mean, it's very Clint Eastwood in a way. He doesn't have to boast. He doesn't have to be loud. He already knows that he's the best. This confidence level that he has in himself and his skills puts him in a position where he's almost aloof. He takes Hunter to the next level because Hunter is also a very straightforward, no nonsense communicator. He doesn't over talk. He doesn't say too much. He's not prone to hyperbole or being loud. But like you say, he also adds that layer of truth telling. Hunter might be a little bit reserved because he's the leader, and you have to, as a leader, you have to not say certain things, to your team, like, oh yeah, the likelihood of failure on this mission is very high. You don't want to go full K2SO. Crosshair is just like, yeah, your friend's probably dead, or he's probably a traitor or whatever, and this is not a good idea, and we shouldn't do this, but I'm here and this is my job, so let's go. He kind of says, maybe he says the things that Hunter can't. He's like his extended voice. But the toothpick thing gets associated with chaotic neutral or adjacent to bad characters, people who might be morally ambiguous, or the people you're not sure about, people that exist sort of outside the norm, but we're not really sure if they're heroes, anti-heroes, or villains. First thing I thought of within the Star Wars universe was Cad Bane, because clearly he's a character that spends a little time with a toothpick.
The distinctions in their personalities and their skills, but also their weaponry. Crosshair has the rifle. Tech, he has 2 pistols. Hunter has the knife. The creative team went to lengths to provide a variety of weapons, different weapons to each character.
But just to speak about the 99 situation, I'd love each guy on the team has a 99 in Arbesh somewhere on their armor. Everybody's got a skull somewhere on their armor or on them. It feels like an elite unit. They're separate from the standard clone army. They have unit pride. They have the stuff on, again, all over their armor and their helmets and whatnot. It just looks really awesome. It's interesting, though, that image that you shared about Battlefront 2. The armor in Battlefront 2 looks a lot heavier and a lot chunkier than the way they're rendered in the show, in the Clone Wars, and then ultimately as they will be in the Bad Batch show. So when I first was doing research and they were talking about how they were all wearing clone commando armor, I thought back to the game, and you look at the renderings of the clone commandos in that particular piece of media, they feel a lot larger and heavier. And so smarter folks than me who spend a lot of time comparing, clone armor wrote this article, so I'm going to roll with it. But now looking at it in Battlefront 2, it does clearly look more like commando armor because it is bigger and heavier. So I'm assuming that it's an aesthetic to the cartoon, that they're not looking like that. Except for Wrecker, of course, because he's the big dude.
Yeah, the Battlefront 2 image definitely feels more like Republic Commando than the animated show. Yep. In the first episode of Season 7, 2 battle droids, they have the same conversation as the stormtroopers on the Death Star in A New Hope. Yep. Picked up on it?
Yeah, it was a callback. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I haven't actually written down.
Yeah, I was laughing. And but of course it doesn't.
Maybe it's a drill.
Yeah, it doesn't finish because he doesn't get to say drill. He gets destroyed. But I thought I really liked that. Okay, so I know you guys, and I didn't ask you to, and it's going to be better this way. I know you guys didn't do any research on the production team. I'll be sharing it with you, and then it's reaction in the moment. I'm really curious. So the head writer for the Bad Batch, her name is Jennifer Corbett, and she was the screenwriter of Star Wars Resistance.
And she got hired back?
Yes. Well, she worked with Filoni.
Well, you know what? It could be a situation of, hey, this is the type of show that we're trying to do. Give it your best shot. Because this writing is 1,000 times better than the Resistance show. So do what they tell you, because it pays the bills.
Well, so let me ask a question. So she wrote the 4-issue, sorry, comic guy talking, the 4-episode story arc, Clone Wars Season 7? Or
no,
she's the writer? Yeah, so she's the writer that's been hired for the show.
Yes. Brett Friedman wrote the Bad Batch story arc. So yeah, she is not written for the Bad Batch until now.
Okay, so initially my concerns are Resistance was terrible, but I'm willing to give the benefit of the doubt because Resistance was a very specific thing that needed to be created within a specific genre. It was definitely a children's show. It was not a children's air quotes show like Clone Wars. Is this individual being brought on board to write this show because we're also going to have a main character that is a young child? Is this now speaking to the direction that the Bad Batch show is going in? Clone Wars is not a children's show. That show is very dark. It's full of violence. It's full of some very serious themes. And yeah, there's some fun moments and there's some levity, and we get Jar Jar and we get C-3PO and R2, and Padme shows up and there's some funny stuff and whatever. But generally, over the course of 7 seasons, it's a very dark product. Now we've started the lore of the Bad Batch in that universe, right? Season 7, majority of that is also very dark. The fall of Mandalore and Darth Maul and Ahsoka Tano and the final turn of Anakin to Darth Vader and Order 66 and like all this stuff. Like it's very heavy. So now we're going to hand the show over to a writer of a true children's cartoon, and then we're going to have a newly introduced character of Omega, who is a child. I'm starting to see a lot of red flags. Like the arrows are pointing in a direction that I'm not really sure I want this show to go in. It's going to look like the Clone Wars, but is it going to be the Clone Wars? So maybe she was hamstrung by, 1, the style of show that it was supposed to be, and 2, it was written in a very specific time frame in the sequel universe, and so she had to cover certain things. So I'm willing to give her the benefit of the doubt, but when we do a recap show of the first several episodes of this, you might hear more from me.
If I was writing Resistance, I would have tried to have more Kylo Ren. I would have more actual Resistance fighting that took place instead of the racing that they did. Yeah, it's hard to blame somebody if your hands are tied.
Okay, so moving on. Dave Filoni is the executive producer. Many, many accolades on our shows for The Mandalorian. He definitely knows Star Wars, so I think at the top we feel the show is in really good hands. Brad Rao is the supervising director. He was the co-director of Star Wars Rebels, The Siege of Lothal. I believe it came between seasons 1 and 2 of the show. He directed 4 episodes of Rebels in all. He directed every episode of Forces of Destiny, and he directed 7 episodes of Star Wars Resistance. And fun fact, before you react to Brad Rao, the Mandalorian character Fen Rao is named after Brad Rao, who directed the character's first appearance in Rebels, The Protector of Concord Dawn.
So I'm 50-50 on this. Clearly, he's been involved in some very good things, and he's also been involved in some not so good things. So
what, you're not a fan of Forces of Destiny?
Not at all. They were 20-second commercials to try and sell dolls, and it didn't work. But I'm willing to give these people the benefit of the doubt because they are working under directive of Lucasfilm. So now I've got constraints on me as a creative. I have to do the best that I can. I'm not entirely excited about that and the Resistance connection, but I love me some Rebels, and I like this resume better than the last one, but jury's out.
Before we get into the characters, one more member of the production team. Athena Portillo is the executive producer. She was the producer of Rebels and the line producer of the Clone Wars. So I'm guessing we feel very confident with her as another executive producer with Dave.
I mean, I see nothing in that resume that would portend problems, but I need to see the final product.
But let's be honest, what does the producer do? Make sure that they stay on budget, get it done on time? They're really not involved in the content.
They do have some say. They might not have necessarily say at the beginning of the process when it comes to the creative decisions or whatnot, but as like David said, a budget and things like that. I mean, they're on top of that. They're project managers, but they also have a say of what the final release is, right? They're kind of the last gatekeeper in a way. And then that would, of course, would bring up a larger discussion about what we've been getting from Star Wars. This person will probably take a look at the final episodes or the close to final episodes and say, yes, this is acceptable for Disney Plus, or no, go back and fix it. Having been a producer on these other shows that have final product that we enjoy, I'm inclined to believe that this is a good hire.
And of course, there'd be a lot of crossover. I mean, this is the animation wing of Lucasfilm. So when you have an animated project, you will have many of the same people. So even though did not like Resistance, makes sense that we'd have a crossover. Okay, so move into the characters. Ming-Na Wen is Fennec Shan from The Mandalorian. Returning from the Clone Wars, Stephen Stanton as Grand Moff Tarkin. Andrew Kishino is Saw Gerrera. And D. Bradley Baker returns to do the voices of all of the clone characters.
So the fact that he does all the clone characters is pretty cool. And I do realize that voice actors have the ability to do hundreds upon maybe even thousands of different characters. But these 5, to know which one you're actually really trying to use, it's pretty amazing. I'm very impressed. And we get to see more of Fennec since we were first introduced to her in Mandalorian. I'm excited about her. Although I'm still a little upset by the fact that nobody ever seems to die in Star Wars, even after you get shot and left in a desert. And then also, anytime you can put Tarkin on the screen, I'm all for it.
No one's ever really gone, David. Hey, you like that movie. Yeah, I am very excited about the voice actors. We've seen their work throughout the Clone Wars show, and I'm glad that they brought all these people back, especially since we are dealing with clones. It's nice to have the voice of the clones. The Tarkin character, again, I'm very excited to see that. Like David said, excited to see more of Fennec Shand. Interesting to see, how we tell the backstory, how she got to where she is, her introduction perhaps to Boba Fett. Absolutely, all that's great. Looking forward to it. Can't wait.
So I know I missed Saw Gerrera. I almost wish that they would just do a cartoon version of Saw Gerrera and how he ended up in Rogue One. I would love to see that.
Well, we did, David. It's called the Clone Wars and Rebels.
He was in bits and pieces, but show me just his story.
Have you come here to do a show about me? Boogle it!
Oh, yeah.
Oh, dude. Yeah, absolutely.
I do not find Saw Gerrera interesting enough to carry a show. I like seeing his story unfold from Clone Wars to Rebels and now to the Bad Batch. I like that. I think that's enough Saw Gerrera for me.
Do a band of misfits and pirates and things that the Rebels say is not ethical. You could have him do some crazy stuff. I'd be down for that.
So he gets the rated R show on Disney Plus?
Yes.
One man's extremist, another man's patriot. So, we got him early on when he still had hair and was young and hip. And then his sister died in the Clone Wars, and then we saw him start to turn. And then we met him in Rebels, where he's already been disavowed by the rebellion. So yeah, I know I'm with David. I would be interested to see, a little something about Saw. Maybe just give me Clone Wars Redux, maybe 4 or 5 episodes that are 20, 30 minutes long or whatever of animated stuff, and tell me the story of how he went full Colonel Kurtz. He went up the river and he came back extreme Saw Gerrera with a shaved head and a breathing apparatus. I don't know. How did he lose his foot? Give me the story. I would love to see a little bit more about him because he is an intriguing character. He has the potential to be a very fascinating character. Again, if he's well written and the show is done right. But if it turns out to be like a Resistance cartoon, then no, I don't need any more Saw Gerrera. Thank you.
Let's talk about trailers 1 and 2. And I organize my notes by locations I recognized. Camino, for example. I'm trying to take try to step back, make a little bit more sense of things, maybe put them in order by location. There's a training arena on Camino. We see Tarkin on an observation platform in a tower high above the arena. Lamassu is with Tarkin, and Tarkin says, a test is in order, 5 enhanced clones more capable than an army, yet they exhibit a concerning level of disobedience and disregard for orders. And a lot of time in both trailers is spent showing the Bad Batch taking apart droids. 2 droids I don't recognize. One of them might be first-gen Dark Trooper, although what they told us in The Mandalorian is the first and second generations had people in suits, so maybe not, but they do look an awful lot like Dark Troopers. At one point, Wrecker is taunting Tarkin. The arena is empty, and he's screaming, what else you got? Give me more. The whole group's wearing black jumpsuits with Imperial cogs on the shoulders, and Hunter is saying we need to get out of here, away from Kamino. We have Omega talking to Clone Force 99. This is the kid with the Kaminoan stone on his forehead, and we don't know if Omega is a boy or a girl, so I apologize. In any case, is this an enhanced clone experiment? We see Omega with an energy bow. Towards the end of the second trailer, Hunter asks, what do you say, kid? Do you want to come with us? The Empire will be shutting down Kamino. And by shutting down, it could mean destroying all the cloning facilities and wiping out the Kaminoans, or it could simply mean Tarkin turning on Clone Force 99 and ordering that they be wiped out. That's everything I have for Kamino.
Watching this section of the trailer, are they affected by Order 66? I don't think they will be. What about Echo? Is he going to be affected and then turn on them? A couple things that popped into my mind about Kamino and then taking this kid on this, do you want to go with us type of a deal? Makes me think.
I'm excited to see Kamino. If we get closure or if we see the end of Kamino, what is the ultimate end to that relationship? Because Sidious / Palpatine in the prequel films, we find out that they ordered this army many years before the actual war. What happens now that the Clone War is over? Does Kamino make it out alive from their relationship with Palpatine? To your Order 66 concerns, that is specific to the Jedi. We saw some episodes in the Clone Wars where there were deserter clones. They'd gone off and done other things, started families. Order 66 didn't necessarily affect them, or, well, we assume it doesn't. So maybe Echo, even though he has the chip, it doesn't really mean anything unless he comes across a Jedi. Maybe that issue comes up. Maybe it is something we deal with in the course of the show if they come across a Jedi. But it doesn't look like they're going to be coming across any Jedi. But there is something with the Bad Batch where they operate independently. They have this reputation for being 100% effective in their missions. They never fail. They're highly lethal. They don't even know who they report to. This is a question, right? So they've operated during the Clone War with complete autonomy. They've worked with Cody, like we said. Omega, who appears to have only been on Kamino, knows who they are. So either the clones have talked about them, or the Kaminoans have talked about them, or they've been on the HoloNet. We don't know. Kamino is going to be a key element in all of this. Kamino can produce an army of millions. So clearly, if they're not going to be utilized anymore by the new Galactic Empire, they represent a threat to the power base, because if someone was perhaps a princess of Alderaan who might have access to some capital, they might go brew an army in a vat. Tarkin, who is, he's there for a reason. The test of the Bad Batch, it's a great callback to the Domino Squad and to the stuff we saw early in the Clone Wars. I'm really looking forward to seeing what it is that's going on there. Why are they recalled? Why are they put through the tests? Is Tarkin's pride hurt? Does he want to shut them down because of that? Or does he recognize them as a threat to the Empire? Of course, we see him later saying they need to be hunted down. We don't know what happens between the test and that moment, and if that all occurs on Kamino. We also see some scenes in these trailers where the Bad Batch is fighting with other clones, and some of that appears to be taking place on Kamino. We don't know when the turn happens. Obviously, they are escaping. They ask Omega to join them, but it will be interesting to see how that plays out.
If there are any questions about what happened to the Jedi, or what happened to the clones, why did the clones execute Order 66, Rex could clear all of that up.
Right. He will be able to provide that information to them. But the question I think that David asked earlier is, do they have those chips? Because they are clearly products of the cloning process before the chip situation was discovered and before Order 66. And maybe because they are bad batchers, right? Maybe because they aren't acceptable, quote unquote, they may have foregone the process of putting the chips in them before they realized that their mutations were advantageous and they were allowed to just go into the military. Or maybe do you get a scene where they get their chips removed as well? Maybe their first interaction with Rex, he's had the surgery, he's done the thing, he's survived. He knows what Ahsoka told him. Maybe he helps them through that process. But clearly he's going to be some kind of guide for them in the show, because we do see several scenes in the trailers where he's with them and there's some crashed battle cruisers and things like that.
Thank you for bringing up the dining hall. Crosshair is throwing a plate at clones in a dining hall. Wrecker, in disguise, bangs a group of clones' heads together, knocks them out. And Hunter is disarming and shooting clones in a warehouse or a landing area, or it could even be that arena. So yes, so those scenes probably come from Kamino as well. Which again, it's all in the first episode or two. They're going to be on the run, leaving Kamino with Omega because the clones are all being decommissioned or wiped out, or because they've been deemed a threat. The Bad Batch flies a modified new class attack shuttle. There's a scene with unknown starships pursuing. Hunter's using the tail gun. I do not know what Kaminoan ships look like. Could be part of the flight from Kamino.
Yeah, I don't recognize those at all. So it could be, it could be part of that. Or it could be something else. I mean, again, we've seen a few other places that we didn't recognize. It just depends on how they stitch together the trailer.
Zygeria is home to slavers. There was an interesting story arc in the Clone Wars set on Zygeria. Hunter is fighting one of the slavers. The slavers brandish energy whips. Same location, maybe Zygeria. This is Echo, but he's wearing different gear. That visor looks like Tech's visor. There's another clip, it must be from the same scene or same part of the episode, where a Brezak, one of the gliding lizards, is fighting Tech and Hunter, and it looks like they're in the same place. It looks like a junkyard.
The slaver thing is interesting because I was trying to figure out the sort of lizardy looking dudes with the energy whips. I was trying to place it. So thank you for that.
That visor looks a lot like the police cop from Star Trek, the reboot. The cop busts Kirk while he's driving that vintage car over the cliff. Pretty sweet, though. I kind of like that helmet design. It's different, which that's one thing I really like about the Bad Batch is their helmets are so, I don't want to say steampunk, but it's definitely unique.
It's similar to Tech's visor, but it's not. With the breathing tubes, it could be some kind of underwater thing. Could be a scuba trooper. Special Forces elite unit is going to have different equipment than standard clones. Probably something aquatic for the Kamino situation.
I'll even take it one step further. Even though he was rescued from the Techno Union, he was in pretty bad shape. So I'm wondering if he could have some lingering health issues.
There is a huge junkyard of Republic cruisers and war material. I believe the photo of Commander Rex with the Bad Batch comes from that location. We see a downed cruiser's engine. We see it activate. I'm not sure because the cut on the trailer is very fast, but it might also explode as it turns on. Wrecker climbing to escape a monster. It could be a Mama Core from The Mandalorian. It could even be a Sarlacc, but it's this monster with jaws and tentacles, and he's climbing away from it. Clone with a flamethrower, like an incinerator trooper, if there's such a thing as an incinerator clone trooper, maybe. So there will be a scene with all that's been thrown away, with all that's been disposed of from the Clone Wars era, and this made me think of Jedi Fallen Order. At the beginning of the game, the main character is working on a planet called Braca, and to my eyes, this is very similar to what we saw in the trailer, and definitely the same concept. All the Republic cruisers and gunships, everything's being taken apart. It's not a shipyard, it's a breaking yard. Why would the Bad Batch, what would they be looking for? Why would they travel to this breaking yard?
Well, I guess it's that they're probably trying to find transportation. Maybe they need to ditch the ship that they had, and they knew about this place from past experience and change things up so they don't get recognized. So that would be one way to change things up.
Maybe this is where Rex gets his tank, his walking tank or whatever that we find him on in Rebels. My first impression was Jakku, which is clearly not, but it gave me the feel of that. His Star Destroyer crashed in the desert or whatever, bright sunlight. I also looked back to some of the episodes in season 4 of Rebels with Darth Maul. We find him on a garbage planet. There might be some connection to that as well. Maybe they might be going there to try and find other clones, trying to seek allies. It's probably a hunt for equipment, or it could be some other kind of MacGuffin situation. They're looking for something on one of these ships that's going to help them find a thing that's going to get them to a place. I mean, we don't know. The beast thing that they're trying to escape from, I also went to Sarlacc. I also thought of Rathtar. We've seen a lot of tentacle-y things with mouths in Star Wars. The situation with Rex and the crew on that planet, maybe it's something with Omega, maybe it's something, with the chips, a way to remove or identify, or, who knows? It could be all that stuff. It could also be, this is the cynic in me. It could also be a way to just tie in other media, books, sequel movies, and so it very well could be a tie-in to the video game or whatnot. I mean, we don't know.
The other thing with Rex is if he is potentially wanted by the Empire since he was freed by Ahsoka, I don't understand why he would still be wearing his clone outfit. I mean, yeah, he kind of tends to blend in, but at the end of that season, they were kind of transitioning to different designs. So you'd think he'd want to shed that outfit.
From this little snippet that we have, he's clearly in league with, in some capacity, with the Bad Batch. And if we understand that the Bad Batch is wanted, this could be before they get called to Kamino and get put through the test. They could be on a mission together. Something completely independent of the scene where we see Tarkin and we see them trying to escape Kamino and them ultimately falling from grace. Either way, at some point, these people are in league with one another. We're going to, in this show, I'm fairly confident, we're going to at least touch on the conversation, what it means to be obsolete, what it means to be decommissioned. Could be great storytelling. You're talking about people who are literally bred for war, and their entire existence has been in service of a conflict, and now that conflict is over and they're no longer needed. And how do you deal with that? What is the psychological impact of that? How do you find your way? You know nothing else. You have no other skills. Now you're being cast aside. There's a lot of clones floating around, not unlike all these ships that we're finding laying around in a desert somewhere. That there's a real problem with having a couple of million highly trained and skilled veterans of conflict just aimlessly wandering around. It could be a great subplot or portion of the show where Rex and others, and including even the Bad Batch guys, they kind of have to figure out, like, how do we make our way in the universe now that we no longer have purpose.
So with that being said, why don't you just rehire them and make them into stormtroopers? Or you already implanted Order 66. Why not implant something else to just have them drop dead right where they're standing? Although it's cruel, it definitely solves that problem.
That could be a fascinating conversation. I mean, you could have a group of clones. One portion of that group could be very proud of their service and could be like, well, the Empire no longer needs us. And then there's the other group, the people that we've come to know and love in the other media, people like Rex, free-thinking individuals, being angry about being born slaves and bred to fight and only having one purpose, which is to die in service. There's so many story elements here as a background or a subset of the storytelling of Clone Force 99, right?
Lots of questions regarding the end of the Clone Wars and the beginning of the Imperial era. Does the Empire wish to destroy all evidence of Order 66? We touched on it a little bit, but specifically Palpatine's announcement of the Empire to the clone army. We see the Bad Batch standing at attention with thousands and thousands of other clones listening to this important announcement. Wrecker fighting some droids. I didn't recognize them. They're yellow. Does anyone recognize those droids?
They look like a cross between the commando droids from the first season of Clone Wars and K2SO.
Hunter steals a speeder bike, pilots it through traffic. It might be Coruscant. It definitely has that Coruscant air traffic feel. We see him throw a magnetic explosive onto Fennec Shan's speeder. She leaps from the speeder onto an air taxi to avoid the blast. And one quote from her, "The galaxy's a dangerous place to be."
The Palpatine announcement reminded me a lot of episode 2 when they were in there standing at attention at the very end of the movie with the Bad Batch standing there. They seemed really out of place. Oddballs. Not necessarily supposed to be there. The speeder bike chase, I really like that, those clips going through the city and seeing all the different bright colors. It reminded me definitely of Coruscant. I would love for them to do a little bit more in Coruscant. We only got a snippet of the lower levels of Coruscant in episode 2, and it'd be really cool to see more of that. But as I was rewatching that, I tried to make the comparison between season 7 of the Clone Wars and what we're seeing in the trailers in Bad Batch. And the last couple episodes, you could really tell that they upped the production. It was more of a cinematic thing, sharper images, colors, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little disappointed. It just seems like they're pulling back a little bit where I think they should be moving forward. Hope I'm wrong with this, and it's just because it's a trailer, but I would really like them to up their game. So I really enjoyed those last couple episodes of Clone Wars.
I think that the art and the quality of the renderings are on par with all of the seasons of Clone Wars that we got up to the final season. The battle for Mandalore, that was treated as a separate cinematic event. If you look at the logos and the way that it was presented, it was supposed to be the grand finale of the show. Compare that to the other stuff, I'm sure it is probably disappointing. And having gone back and rewatched a lot of the Clone Wars, I don't feel like the trailer is subpar compared to the height of the Clone Wars. It feels the same, so I'm not too worried about that.
The crowd gathered in a square, Republic tanks, tech firing from one Republic tank, destroying another Republic tank. Saw Gerrera says the Clone Wars have ended. You can either adapt and survive or die with the past. The decision is yours. And he holds out a blaster to Hunter. Difficult to place with the other locations that we've covered. Not sure where those scenes fit in. Finally, the Bad Batch attacking battle droids in a forest in the fog. Regular clones taking cover, tech blowing up some target.
There's no point in fighting droids anymore once the Clone War ends, once Order 66 is executed and the Empire is established. So I could very much see this being the introduction to the series, showing us again their prowess as a team, how they work together, how the other clones respect them. And then we move into the announcement of the Galactic Empire with Palpatine, and then the testing with Tarkin, and then ultimately the turn or the purge or whatever you want to call it. I could very much see them ultimately winding up with Saw Gerrera as part of his rebel group. I mean, we're bringing Saw Gerrera into the show for some reason. And so they're going to go find war because that's what they're good at. And so where's the new war? Join me. Here's a pistol. Let's go fight against the Empire. We'll see. But I think a lot of that stuff that I would like to see is probably going to be derailed by the existence of the Omega character and by the involvement of all these children's cartoons, and that we're not really going to be able to go deep and a little bit dark with our exploration of these characters, because we've got this kid with an electronic bow and arrow and a weird headpiece. So I hope it's not that, and I hope we get to do some of the more gritty kind of combat and how it affects them and their psychology. And all great stories that could be told. I just hope they get to them.
Our discussion of the Bad Batch has come to an end. Thank you, David.
May the Force be with you.
Thank you, Sean.
I ain't in this for your revolution, and I'm not in it for you, Princess.
Galactic Initiative is not authorized or endorsed by Lucasfilm Limited. The name Star Wars and all related materials are registered trademarks of Lucasfilm Limited, a subsidiary of the Walt Disney Company, all rights reserved. Galactic Initiative is a registered trademark, and other product and company names are trademarks of their respective holders. Use does not imply affiliation or endorsement.